各位現場朋友，大家好！我哋活動即將開始，請大家將手提電話調至到靜音模式。我們這一次的活動以英語進行，請把手機電話調到靜音模式，謝謝。我們現場設有這個普通話的傳譯服務，大家可以用我們接收器調到普通話的頻道1號頻道。The event is about to begin. Please set your mobile phone to the silent or vibration mode. The sessions will be conducted in English with simultaneous interpretations into Mandarin. If you have a receiver, please turn it on and select the Mandarin channel 1. Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. 我們現場朋友，大家好，掌聲歡迎大家出席我們的活動。Let's give a round of applause to all the guests of honor to attend our event. Distinguished guests and friends, welcome to the Macao Museum of Art for the special lecture. I'm here, Helena Almeida, Princess and Residence. I'm your MC of today, Ronnie Chan. Thank you. And today's lecture is titled Helena Almeida and Dialogues on Contemporary Art. It begins with the chief curator Delfim Sardo's presentations on Helena Almeida. This is followed by the reflections on the resonance sections by co-curator. The sections conducted with an open conversations among the curators, artists, and the public discussions across the cultural perspectives, creative thinking, and media innovations in contemporary art. First of all, now, may we invite to welcome the chief curator of the exhibition. Let's make a round of applause. Professor Delfim Sardo. Professor Sardo is a renowned art critic and curator from Portugal with extensive experience in contemporary art and curatorial practice. He has worked closely with Helena Almeida and brings deep insight into her artistic philosophy. We welcome Professor Sardo.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So first of all, let me thank you all for coming here on a Saturday, using part of your weekend to hear a little bit more about Helena Almeida. What I'm going to do is like a walk through Helena Almeida's career, her different moments in her artistic path, and it will serve perhaps as an introduction for your visit to the exhibition. I think that if you, after our conversation, if you want to go to the exhibition, the exhibition has 3 videos, and I would invite you to not hesitate and spend some time inside the videos, because they are very revealing of the work of Helena Almeida, and they are very interesting and very emotionally very strong, I think, in my opinion. First, I would like to Thank you. First, I would like to explain a bit the name of the show, because the name of the show makes a direct relation with the presence of Helena Almeida, which can be contradictory to this moment when we are presenting the show, when Helena Almeida is no longer with us. Helena Almeida was born in 1934. She passed away in 2018, and so she's no longer among us. Anyway, we decided to call the show I Am Here. And in a way, this contradiction has to do with the nature or with the essence of the work of Helena Almeida, because everything that Helena Almeida did throughout her life was around this idea of presence, of being present, and sharing her presence with us, with the public and the audience. I'm always very surprised. I still am. I know the work of Helena Almeida for so long. I've worked with her several times. I made several exhibitions with her, and I wrote lots of times about Helena Almeida. And I'm always surprised with something very curious. Helena Almeida, she made work in painting, in drawing, in photography, in installation, and video. And Helena Almeida, she was not very interested in the practice of painting. She didn't make one single photograph throughout her life. She thought that her drawings were completely uninteresting, and she didn't shoot any of the videos that she presents. So there is this paradox of an artist that is a very important artist with a very important work, and nevertheless, let's say the specificity of each artistic technique, of each artistic practice, were not the center of her work. The center of her work was elsewhere. And one could say that the center of her work is in performance art. But it's a performance, or a kind of performance, that nobody saw for real. We only see in the videos or in the photographies. We never seen a performance of Helena Almeida because she never did a performance in front of an audience. And she didn't even like performance as a type of artistic practice. The only witness to these performances that Helena Almeida did in her studio was her husband, also an artist and an architect called Artur Rosa, which is a very important character and a very important partner of the artistic process of Helena Almeida, as we shall see. So Helena Almeida, also being really a very, very peculiar and interesting performance artist in the European context, she never made a performance. So it's really elsewhere that we have to look for the importance of the work of Helena Almeida. The other thing that we must begin in our travels through Helena Almeida's work is this idea that Almeida always photographed herself. She was the subject of her photographs. And nevertheless, she never made self-portraits. It's different to make self-representations and to make self-portraits. Self-portraits have to do with an essay, a possibility of grasping something in our intimacy to show to the others, trying to reveal something of the perhaps hidden psychological determinations of our being to the others through the image. And we know that the amount of writings that were written, for example, on Van Gogh self-portraits, because everybody has the idea that in Van Gogh self-portraits there is a hidden secret about his psychology, about his possible madness, about his possible conflictual relation to the others in the world. And portraits or self-portraits, they are always mingled with this psychological approach to artistic practice. Even in works about characters that are not self-portraits, but are just portraits, about characters about whom we know very little about, like, for example, Mona Lisa, the Gioconda. There are writings and writings and writings about the mystery of the smile in Gioconda, about what was that woman thinking, what was that woman desiring, what was that woman, what was the relation of that woman with the painter. And all that speculation, it's because portraits, they are like open possibilities of windows to, in case of self-portraits, to the artist's soul, to the artist's inner self. It's also not the case with Helena Almeida. We know nothing about Helena Almeida looking at her photos. We see a woman dressed always in a very plain way, with a black dress, always with a black dress. Except in the first images, we'll go through that. And so she has this black dress, which is her only disguise. In most of the photos, you don't see her expression, you don't see her face, or when her face appears, there's not in the expression of the face that you are drawn to look at. You look elsewhere because the subject of the photo, although the face is there and the presence of the person is there, the focus is elsewhere, is perhaps in a brush stroke that she's doing, perhaps in a gesture that she's doing, but not in the psychology of the face. And so you have this other particularity, which is she makes self-portraits that are not self-portraits, are self-representations that don't reveal anything about Helena Almeida, the artist herself. So she does paintings with not being a painter. She does photographies not being a photographer. She does performances not being a performer. She does self-portraits not doing self-portraits. So there is something really interesting about Helena Almeida. Perhaps that is this continuous detournement, continuous shift in the way we look at her work that made me so interested for so many years in the work of Helena, and that I decided to do the first exhibitions with her on her work. The career of Helena Almeida was not a regular career. She was a woman artist in Portugal, coming from a family of artists, which would be an advantage. Her father was the sculptor Leopoldo Almeida. Leopoldo Almeida was a very important sculptor in the Portuguese panorama, mostly in the 40s and 50s of the 20th century, 1940, 1950. He was very present in the big public sculpture that was made in Portugal during the Estado Novo regime, during the period of Salazar. So he was a very important sculptor, also very conservative in his artistic language. But let me tell you, one cannot make a drama about it in relation with Helena Almeida, because Helena always had a fantastic relation with her father. And throughout her career, her father was always supportive, even if Helena Almeida was doing a kind of artistic work that was much more close to the avant-gardes, to the second avant-gardes of the 1960s and 1970s, than to anything as classical as the sculptural work that her father was doing. Nevertheless, Leopoldo was always very supportive of Helena Almeida's work. But so, anyhow, she was a woman artist in a very closed country, as Portugal was during the period of the dictatorship. And so the career of Helena Almeida was also the rhythm of the career was also very linked to her personal history. So Helena Almeida married in the 50s. While she was a student of the Fine Arts School. She had a son and a daughter. And still in the 50s, one in the 50s, the other in 1960. And so she began her career only in 1963, when the kids were a bit more independent, you know. So the classic history of a woman artist that doesn't have the freedom in terms of possibility of management of her own time. And so she began her career a bit late. And in 1964, she had a grant from the Gulbenkian Foundation. For those of you who are not familiar with the Gulbenkian Foundation, the Gulbenkian Foundation was a foundation that appeared in Portugal in 1957, and it was really very important for the Portuguese artistic panorama. Let's say almost all the artists that were emerging artists in the 50s and 60s and 70s, they had support from the Gulbenkian Foundation, which was a kind of substitute for the Minister of Cultural Affairs, which didn't exist in Portugal. So Gulbenkian had a determinant role. And among the several artists that had grants from Gulbenkian, like Paulo Rego had a grant from Gulbenkian, Helena Almeida also had a grant from Gulbenkian, to go to Paris. The advantage of the grants from Gulbenkian at the time is that people didn't have to go and study in university or make a course anywhere. No, they could decide, I want a grant to go to Paris and see art. And that was really important. So she went to Paris, and she spent not really a year, a little bit less than a year, seeing art in Paris. And it was very important, the contact that she had with the work of Marcel Duchamp, that she already saw. Marcel Duchamp was still alive in 1964, and was already present in some collections in France. And especially, she had a contact with the work of Lucio Fontana. Lucio Fontana was an Italian-Argentinian artist that made an important career during the Second World War. He lived in Italy, and during Second World War, he went to Argentina, and he has been in Argentina since 1940 to 1949. And there in Argentina, he began developing a type of work with some other fellow artists that he called spatialism. So a work of art that was connected with space. It could be in sculpture, it could be in painting. He was a sculptor by training, but he began doing a kind of work that was about the relation between the space that is in front of the canvas, so the space where we are, where we live, the real space, the three-dimensional space where we move, and the space of representation, which is the space beyond the surface of the canvas. And this idea of the relation between what is in our real space and what is beyond the surface of the canvas, be it a representation or something much more conceptual. Lucio Fontana used to do what he called in Italian buchi, holes in the canvas, or cuts in the canvas, making kind of connection between a wound that would connect the real world with the world of imagination beyond. And Helena Almeida was so impressed with that she began thinking, how can I transform my practice in painting with something that has this contamination between the idea of the painting as a window, being it in front, in our space, or beyond the pictorial surface. And so her first paintings are these windows. They are windows. They are windows with these curtains. Of course, there is here a reference, an historical reference, to the idea of painting as a window. And so she took it literally, transforming the painting in a real window. And the metaphor of the window is even more present because she shows the structure of the painting itself. And then she makes some kind of humor with the idea of the canvas that goes up and down using this blue. Here she makes a kind of erotic painting. It's a striptease of a painting. It's a painting stripping itself from the clothes of a painting. And the clothes of a painting, it's paint and canvas. And so she was playing with this idea of separating the elements of the painting in its components: the canvas, the stretcher, the color. And in terms of color, she was systematically using the same color, which was blue. This blue is a mixture between ultramarine blue and cobalt blue. Lots of people saying this is the blue used by Yves Klein, the French artist that made this use, almost exclusive use from a certain moment on, of a type of a kind of cobalt blue. It's not the same blue that Helena Almeida uses. The blue from Yves Klein is a blue that has much more magenta than the blue from Helena Almeida. And Helena Almeida uses this blue, which is a cold color, that she says that she likes to use it because of the temperature of this color. The other color that she will use is a red in some works later on in her life. And so she was first making paintings and decomposing paintings, deconstructing paintings in its different parts. At a certain moment, she began doing three-dimensional paintings, paintings that had kind of three-dimensional components, sometimes using this idea of a box. The things would store inside boxes. She as a matter of fact, I have been lying to you, because I've said several times that she used to call this piece sausage. It's not sausage that she called chorizo. And chorizo. So this chorizo, it still has a connection with the idea of window. I don't know, perhaps here it's not used, but in Portugal, in the houses in Portugal, it was very, very common. In Portugal, we are not a very cold country, but one freezes in winter because the houses are not well heated. And it's very common that the houses, that people in houses, they have this, we call it chorizos, which is this kind of a pillow, a round pillow, like a tube filled with sand, usually it's sand, that we put against the down part of the window for the wind not to come in. No? And so she was playing also here with that idea. She was not showing a window. She was showing this kind of tool that is used for the windows to protect from the cold. Sometimes in other pieces, the canvas had this kind of three-dimensional arms and legs. She also made some three-dimensional installations with these structures that were protuberances that were coming out of the canvas. The thing is, she's beginning to make a connection between the painting as a representation and the idea of three dimensions and, of course, the body. And when she began doing paintings with these arms and legs, she was, of course, making a painting with orthotasis. Let me explain what an orthotasis is. You have, for example, you have fake tooth. That is a prosthesis. This is an orthotasis. It's something that I put in my body that doesn't substitute a part of my body, but complements the body somehow. So she began doing these paintings with orthotasis, which remembered arms and legs, and so they were continuations of the painting to the world of three dimensions, and making an obvious connection between the painting and the body, the human body. And suddenly, in 1969, she has an idea. She made this painting, the one that you see on your left, which you cannot see it in the in the image, but it's pink. and she made these arms in the painting. And she took a photo behind the painting. So she called it Pink Canvas to Wear. And in this moment, she realized something, that she could become the painting. She could incorporate the painting. She could fuse with the painting. And so the painting was a body. It was a physical body. In this moment, and then she made that photo, and immediately after, she made a series of photos of herself completely dressed as a painting. And you have already, you don't have these two photographs in the show because they were occupied in other exhibitions, but you have a copy of this image that is at the entrance of the exhibition. So you'll have this image also there. And it's an image that is very important because from this moment on, she realizes that she doesn't need to paint to make a metaphor of painting and to make a connection between the painting and the body. And she could put painting in motion, put painting in action. Sometimes the actions are complex actions that are done around something that you still relate with painting. And this work, she goes around a painting. So basically, she's making a game between the idea of behind the painting and in front of the painting. Herself dressed in a way that is like she's dressed in white and has the hair covered with a very thin, like she is a part of the painting. The curious thing is that she's doing photography, but she's not doing one photography. Here, she has done 9 photographies. And these photographies are like the script for a movie. You see a sequence. So she's telling a story. She's telling us a story. And when she's telling us a story, it's because she's doing an action and she wants to depict that action. She wants to show a sequence of time with herself, a person. You see the face, but you don't know nothing about this person. Here you still see how happy she is with the discovery. I can become a painting, and she's happy. It's almost a naive photo, you know. It's very naive, but very revealing of the importance of the discovery that she thinks she did. Here, it begins to be more serious. She begins making essays, trying to see the sequence of the images, trying to get out from the idea of a perfect image or getting away from the idea of masterpiece. That's not what interests her. And at the same time, she develops the work in terms of making a connection between that photographic image of a person doing an artistic work, can be, in this case, a drawing, but the drawing becomes physical. And so you have her doing a drawing with even a very technical tool, which is a kind of pencil used, a kind of pen used for architecture and engineer drawings. It's a rotring, perhaps some of you know. And she uses the rotring to make this very thin drawing. And then there is the drawing, the line becomes physical and comes out of the photograph in direction of the viewer. She uses horsehair, because horsehair is thin but thick enough to have consistency. And so she begins to making these drawings that become three-dimensional. And at a certain moment, she begins putting the two things together, telling a story of a drawing that is being made, and the drawing becomes three-dimensional. You'll have the possibility to see these works in the exhibition. They are in the exhibition. And so you can follow this development towards what she calls inhabited drawings. So drawings that are inhabited. And this idea of inhabiting a drawing, so inhabiting an artwork, making of the artwork a kind of home for the artist to live in, to live inside, begins to be very important in her work. Here she does the same thing with painting. And it's very curious what she does. The curious thing is that the description is very easy. So you have a person that arrives with a brush and with a can of paint, and she begins making, painting a little bit of blue. The blue is bigger and bigger until it covers completely the surface. Then the same person puts a hand and pushes away the blue until that person appears again. So it's a sequence, it's a gesture, it's like a movie with stills. And at a certain moment, the things begin to be more complex. And what apparently is a very simple thing, if you look carefully, it's much more complex than it seems. Because you have a person and you have the reflection of the person in the mirror. And the person or the reflection is painting. But the painting goes on top of the real person. And so you have the real reality, if you understand what I'm trying to say, is the painting. It's the thickness of the paint. Because the paint is the only thing that is not represented. It's the thing itself. And the painting covers the representation of the bodies, even if it is the body that would be in the real space in front of the other body that would be the reflection of the first body. So it's a game with different levels of reality. You can count here at least 3 different levels of reality besides our own. Because this is only possible for a viewer. So the character that is here is not the artist that is there, it's the viewer. And here she does the same thing, but in a more... Sometimes I look at these works from this series, which she calls for an inner enrichment. And when I see these works, I think they have something, a kind of religious quality around them, because she absorbs the blue. She transforms the painting in herself. So she paints, then she embraces the paint, and the paint begins to make part of her own body until the paint disappears. Sometimes we don't have those. This one is in exhibition, but we don't have the ones that I'm going to mention. She paints a little bit in a surface. She takes the blue of the surface and she eats it, and she cries blue. Like she absorbs the blue and regurgitates the blue. So she transforms herself into the painting, the painter, and the result of the action of the painter doing the painting. So she's everything inside her body. In the end of the 70s, Helena Almeida made a series of works that we have in the show, a very good representation of those works, called Hear Me, See Me, Feel Me. That is a very, very important series of works. So basically what she does is she has photos of herself or parts of her body with the word ouve, which in Portuguese means hear, meaning hear me. And so she has the word ouve written on her lips. But as it is written on her lips, it seems that she was sealing her lips. So if the lips were sealed, you could not hear anything, right? She makes for the first time one video. And in this video, she's on the other side of a canvas or a paper. You don't understand really well. And first she has the mouth, and then she puts a pencil in the mouth, and from the other side, she writes ouve. But between her and us, there is this surface. So it's about this impossibility. And the other, so she has ouve, filmy, and in the filmy series, there is something between her and someone else. There is always an object that impeaches, that doesn't allow the direct contact of touch between the two persons. Here is a kind of, it's like the breath becomes solid, or it looks like a membrane going from one body to the other. And it's the first time that her husband, Artur Rosa, appears in the photos. He was the person that was making the click of the camera. It was not Helena Almeida that made the click, it was Artur. And here he appears in front of the camera too, in the images. In this piece, this is a very strong image that you have there. Also in the show it has Hear Me. And here it's also the filmy series. So someone is passing to another person a block of wood. So there is no contact between people. So the title of each work, it's always about the opposite of what you see. And you have you have one more work. Not this one. This one, I'm going to talk about it. You have one more work that is called Hear Me. See Me. And the See Me work is nothing that you can see. It's a sound. It's a sound piece. It's the sound of a pencil on a paper making a drawing, a very magnified sound of the pencil on the paper. It is not in the exhibition, but those of you who will use the audio guides in the section about this series of works, you'll have a sample, a 30-second sample of the sound of the piece See Me. So the See Me is the sound of a drawing, which of course cannot be seen, just heard. The other topic that arrives to her work in the beginning of the 80s is this very precise relation to space between, you know already, being in front or behind the canvas was a subject that was important. Here is being inside or outside. And so this is a game inside, with a hand inside a paper cube. From this series on, she'll make a series of works called Studies for Two Spaces, that we could not bring because they were occupied in the show. Studies for Two Spaces. It's always one hand going from one space to another, like one hand on top of a table going to the abyss that is the end of the table, or one hand going inside a glove, going from one space to another, or here inside or outside a cube. And at the same time, she made these artists' books. These books are sculptures, little sculptures that cross the material drawings that she had been doing with the books. And at the same time, she begins to do this series of works that you have in the show called The House. And The House is a title of several works from Helena Almeida. And she begins to be really obsessed with this idea of the house, of inhabiting. You had this idea in painting, inhabited painting, or in drawing, inhabited drawing. But here you begin to have really a physical approach to the idea of inhabiting a space. And as you see, she's mixing painting with photography. So these works are not big, but at the same time, she begins to magnify the photographs. And she begins to use a scale that is not the usual scale of photography as it existed in 1980. In 1980, you had photographies from a Swiss artist called Urs Luthi that were big. You had photographies from a German artist called Jürgen Klauke that were big, but it was not at all common to have photographies that were 1.70 meters high. And she began doing those photographies, sometimes painting. I was with Margarida trying to understand how this was done, because I've never seen her doing these works. And we were trying to get to the conclusion. So she was making the photo of herself with this black dress. Then she was painting on top of the photography. Then she was rephotographing the photography to make these big works. And in this case, the work begins to be more and more abstract. Here, the only bodily thing that you see is the hand on the right of the image. And she begins to make the depictions of gestures, doing drawings using pigment. I know that she was very interested in the Japanese group Gutai. Gutai was a very important Japanese artistic group during the 70s, the 50s, and the Gutai group was very much in the origin of performance in Japan. They themselves were very influenced by the work of Jackson Pollock. And Helena, I know that she was very much aware to the work of this group Gutai, as she was also very much aware of contemporary dance. She was very attentive to the work of Pina Bausch, the German choreographer. She was also very attentive to the work, the postmodern dance of Trisha Brown and of Simone Forti. So she was very curious and attentive about dance, much more about dance than performance, strictly performance. And so she made this series of drawings. The curious thing is that the hands here are life-size. When you see the drawings, and you can see them in the exhibition, when you see the drawings, and if you put, well, ladies, if you do that, for me, my hands are too big for that. But if you try to put your hand in front of the photography, you see that they are rigorously life-size. So the problem of scale is beginning to be a really important thing for her. So this is an image of the installation upstairs. Let's not lose time with that, because you'll see it for yourself. Here, it's another drawing that is made with this black pigment that she gathers or moves away, always in this sequence that allows the gesture to have an expression. And suddenly she begins to magnify the images to a scale that is much bigger than human scale. And so when she gets to this point, you don't have an artist that is dealing with photography as representation. You have an artist that is dealing with photography as an ambience, as a space. She invites us to go inside that space and to deal with the scale of these bodies that are bigger than real, bigger than life size, and our own body. And I invite you to go to the show and sit and have this experience. As happens, like the continuation of the drawings also gets magnified. This is called the wave, and of course it has a reference to the idea of a sea wave. Or these images called Inside Me, Dentro de mí, where she has these little mirrors that kind of engulf the space to the inside of the artist's body. Then there is a series that is crucial in the show called To Seduce, Seduzir. It's a series that has a story. You have these photos of these legs of a woman using high heels. You have little drawings, like that are preparatory drawings. Here you have you can see around the drawings and the photos of the legs. And this series is called Seduzir, and you have a video, and the video is really important. So I urge you to see the video, because the video is, it's the second time she makes a video. She had done a video in 1980, as we've seen, and now she makes the second time a video in 2004, and she made it for an exhibition, that video. As a matter of fact, the video is a preparatory work for, it's part of her working process. At the time, Helena Almeida was working like this. She was doing those drawings that you see in the vitrines in the middle, like these drawings, these little drawings. She didn't even consider these drawings real artworks. She said they were studies, they were like preparation. It was part of the process. Then she would make the videos. And in the video, as you will see, there is Helena Almeida in her studio. She's listening to Baroque music that she always liked to listen to Baroque music. Sometimes she could also listen to Tom Waits. She loved Tom Waits. Or she could listen to, Talking Heads. Yes, she loved Talking Heads. And so but usually Baroque music was perhaps what was more playing in the studio, and she would try some positions, some bodily positions, some gestures. In this case, she was using a stole, and she's using high heels. In her daily life, she never used high heels. She was using high heels because all this series, To Seduce, it's an homage to her sister, Manuela Almeida, who had passed away very recently at the time. And Manuela Almeida went through a very painful disease, a cancer, but she maintained until the last moment. She was a very proud woman of herself, so she maintained, she dressed very well. She, on opposite to Helena Almeida, Manuela Almeida usually was in high heels, and she maintained that very proud self-preservation until the end. And so Helena Almeida, all this work is about that, about someone that is in deep pain, is suffering, and suffering to maintain an absolute dignity and pride in her feminine condition. And so this work is very touching. The video tells the story. If you see the video, you'll understand the drama that is happening. This is a story that Helena Almeida told it. She didn't tell in the beginning when she made the show, but she told it afterwards. And this is a part of another series. We just have this image called "I Am Here," and this image gave the name of the exhibition. This is another part of the Seduzir series that is around the same space. You'll see in the show the thing of the feet. And this is one very, very important new turn on Helena Almeida's work when Artur Rosa appears again in front of the image. She's not only behind photographic, she's again in front of the image with her. And this, you have the story of this woman artist that spent 50 years photographing herself. And of course, during those 50 years, the body changes a lot. Huh? We all change. Most of you don't have the experience of having 50 years of changes. Yeah, but believe me, 50 years is a long time, and we change a lot in 50 years. We have riddles. We have wrinkles. We have marks. Our skin gets stained. We walk in a different way. We are different. And this passage of time, there is a French philosopher that I like very much called Michel Serres, who says that the skin is the map of all our life. Every wrinkle that we have, it's the mark of something that happened. Every scar that we have is the mark of some little thing that happened, some time that we cut ourselves when we were cooking, for example. And so this, the physical marks and the graphical marks of aging begin to be really important in Helena Almeida, as she is an artist, and rarely one talks about that. But let me introduce you that subject. I'm almost finishing now. No, usually you don't talk about that, but Helena Almeida is a woman that photographed herself, and not like, for example, Marina Abramović. Marina Abramović is a little bit younger than Helena Almeida. Or like Rebecca Horn, the German artist, she met Helena Almeida in 2004 in Lisbon. Unlike them, or unlike Vali Expor, she's still alive. All performance artists, they made photographs of her body naked. And from a certain moment on, they could not stand anymore the image of the possibility of photographing her bodies or their bodies naked. Helena Almeida never photographed her body naked. She always photographed her body dressed, which means that she could continue photographing her body until the end of her life with no problem. And that is interesting to think that, because that gave Helena Almeida a huge freedom in the depiction of her image. And so she now she has this history of a marriage with Artur Rosa, that a marriage that lasts for more than half a century. Artur Rosa was nearly 90 at the time, and they were really they had a very strong partnership, and so they begin making these photos of the two of them. Now it's the two of them. It's called The Embrace, o abraço, and they are at the same time they are competing for a tiny space, which is the space of the little stool, or they are helping each other to be on top of that little surface. It's the two things at the same time. They are competing and they are helping. They need to compete to maintain that embrace. And so it's a very touching piece about the passage of time, what happens to human relationships and how they can hold together even in a very tiny space, in a very tiny vital space. You'll see the image for yourselves. And so this is the other work. We are almost at the end. The other the work that is here, which is a video and 3 photos. The video is of this couple that has the legs tied, and they are walking back and forth, and this rope that is not a rope, it's a kind of a metal rod, it's an electric wire, falls, and she pulls it over and falls again and pulls it over, and they walk, and you see that these are people that they're working with difficulty because they are not young, so and until it falls. And let me tell you this story, so I can share that with you. The first time I saw this piece was for an exhibition I was preparing with Helena Almeida, and she called me, come to my studio because I made a video for the show. Come and see what you think. And she had a computer, a monitor, and she passed the video, and I was really, really touched by the video, really very impressed with the video. And I told her, Helena, it's really, this work is really impressive. It's really touching. And she said, with this mixture of humor that she had, she said, yeah, it's like we are trying to figure out which one of us will fall first. And of course, it's about death, you know. So you have all the big themes of art. You have the relation with space, the relation with the space that we inhabit, the relation with the more formal relation to drawing or to sculpture or to painting, the formal conditions of the presentation of the work, the relation to reality or to representation of reality, the relation to the body, the relation to how the bodies get old, get transformed, and live together. And finally, the last works of Helena Almeida, which are these last works that end the show, and that are works from 2018, which is the year when she died, when she passed away. And you have this series of works of a woman sitting in a chair with a head covered with like a bag, a black bag, black cloth, you know. And it's called Dentro de mim, Inside Me, which is the title of an old, very old series of works from Helena Almeida that she recovered the title and used it again. The others were very different. You saw the Inside Me was her feet with the mirrors in her feet. That was the series called Inside Me. And here she gives the same title to something completely different. And so what she puts in front of you is a woman with her head covered. You don't know what goes inside there. You cannot know. It's impossible to know. It's she puts us, the audience, in face of that enigma, which is the enigma of art itself, always. This what is inside there. So the I am here of the title of the show, with these last images, becomes we are here, we, the audience, are here, And we, even in the end of the show, we don't end of the show, the end of the life, although she didn't know that her life was about to end, of course. But in the end, we still don't know what is inside there. And so Helena Almeida, I think, continues to be a mystery. And it's this kind of mysteries that is moving in the art world that makes us interested to know more and to try to understand more and to try to feel a little bit more. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Sardo, for your insightful lecture. So we now move to the presence dialogue. I now invite Margarida Saraiva, co-curator of the exhibition, to the stage to speak with Professor Sardo. Let's welcome. Ms. Saraiva is a curator and a researcher active in Asia and Europe, currently a visiting professor at the University of St. Joseph. Her work focuses on the women artists and intellectual and intercultural curatorial practices. We welcome Ms. Saraiva.
Thank you so much. I need a mic. Thank you so much. Thank you, Professor, for the fantastic lecture. Thank you all for being here. When looking to the work of Helena Almeida, besides everything you have spoke about as major topics within the art field, namely time, space, action, the other, I see in the corpus of work of Helena Almeida love. I see love for art, love for painting, love for the other, the husband, love for the sister as well. Mm-hmm. And that's also a major theme in the art field.
Yes.
Was she really concerned about the topic of love or the theme of love, or is this just a natural consequence of all the other topics that she approached?
Well, Margarida, you read the interviews that are available with Helena Almeida. I know that you did. And so you know well that Helena Almeida didn't like to talk much about the reasons for her work. I don't think that I ever heard the word love from her mouth. And she was usually, in terms of when we were talking about the work, she was much more ironical than anything else. You know, the irony was a tool that was very important to Helena Almeida. There are other works that, if we were looking at them, we could find this irony, even in this very dramatic series called Seduzir. Even in that series, irony is very present. Like when she puts the shoes on the sides of her legs, when she tries to put the shoe in the video in the back, when she says, "I'm tired," there is a mixture that you cannot decide where it begins and stops between drama, of course, the love for her sister and the homage that she's paying, and irony. I totally agree with you that the love is a very important theme of art, and is present in several works of Helena Almeida. We find, although I didn't mention it, but perhaps but the series with Artur Rosa, the love between that couple, and how it depicts a global idea of the love for the other and the need for the presence of the other is absolutely present. So I agree with you. I agree that love is a very important topic in the work of Helena Almeida in different periods, in different ways. I never heard her mention that in my interactions with her, never.
So I will now invite Professor Song and also Terence and Dilys for a conversation about the resonance part of the show.
好，接下来我们有请宋振老师，是来自中国美术学院跨媒体艺术学院讲师，长期就是探索身体与空间的视觉。So thank you both for the meaningful exchange. We now move to the resonance segment, exploring how Almeida works resonance in Eastern contexts. I now invite three co-curators to the stage. Professor Song Zhen, instructor, lecturer at the China Academy of Art, whose work spans body and spatial politics. And also Terence Hyun-Kwang Yu, curator at the Macao Museum of Art, with a focus on politics and philosophical approaches. And Dilys Leung Wai Ping, Macau-based artist and curator at the Macao Museum of Art, whose practice bridges humanities and contemporary arts. The discussions will be moderated by the Margarida Saraiva. We welcome you three all. Thank you. Please welcome.
Professor Song, you have been with us from the beginning of this project. You articulated with us the selection of the Chinese artists. I would like to know if you could share with us what was the rationale of that selection and how do you think that the works produced do relate with Helena Almeida? Thank you.
首先特别感谢在场的所有的嘉宾啊，当然我也是非常荣幸的能够与这么强大、这么有活力的一支策展团队，就是以这个我们的主策展人萨多教授，带领着我们的这个 Margarida， 还有 Dilys， 还有 Terence， 我们一起来做这么一个关于阿尔梅达的展览。那么刚才的这个Margarida 的这个问题啊，其实是这个起源可以追溯的特别早，就是因为我的身份既是艺术家，也是策展人，当然还有一个更重要的身份是中国美术学院的教师。所以我在2013年的时候，在我的课堂有一个课程的名字叫做《身体的政治学》。那个时候呢，就开始引用阿尔梅达的作品，作为课件，来给国内的一些学艺术的同学们做授课。那么就在这个过程中，其实，当时只是因为拿到阿尔梅达的作品与这个伊夫蔡因的作品做一个对比。但是呢，这一次通过我们整个策展组的一个沟通，甚至是在整个这个过程中啊，我学到就是能够从这个萨多教授他的对于阿尔梅达的深入的理解的这个层面啊，更加明确的了解到，其实不只是我们通常意义上理解到的关于阿尔梅达创作中的身体、身份、空间这个角度，而更多的是从一个我当时在策展组提到的一个状态这样的一个关键词入手的。所以也就是因为这样的一个理解的逐渐的深化， 再加上早期的对于阿尔梅达的一些观察，才在整个的这1年多的准备时间中，首先是去不断的去访问国内的我的这些创作的同行，就是中国内地的这些女性的艺术家，然后在这个过程中呢，也在他们的这个作品和近期的这些创作的转向中，去反复的思考他们与阿尔梅达的这类的创作的相近之处，或者说他们是如何从正面或者是从一个隐喻的角度去理解整个阿尔梅达的创作，也是在这个过程中选择了这3位艺术家。需要我来讲述整个展览吗？这个部分，那我简单为大家导览一下。在画面中我们看到的第1幅作品啊，这个是孙晓宇老师的作品，他也是一位这个艺术家，也是老师。那么，其实这件作品是有一个很有趣的插曲，这个我还比较感谢我们的另外一位策展人的坚持。我在策展的过程中是相对开放，尽量的能够留给艺术家很大的创作空间。当然，在整个违约的这个创作中啊，迪丽斯一直坚持的就是能够把杭州的元素引入到这个孙晓宇的作品当中。所以在这个整幅的作品中，我们能够看到这个影像，它既结合了杭州的街景，也结合了我们看到其中有和阿尔梅达相似的向阿尔梅达致敬的这个手势的一些影像。另外呢，就是因为在这样的一个创作时代，我们不得不面对一个 AI 的侵袭，这也是作为孙晓宇他第一次在作品中引入了一些 AI 的元素，做了一个结合，它是一个对于他来说一个很大的挑战。接着我们看到的是它的相对的，因为我这面从中国内地所选择的艺术家，他是以两件作品相对应的来展示的。这件作品叫做《深化玄合》，他在探讨的是一方面他以致敬的方式使用了阿尔梅达所使用的这样的一个蓝色，就像萨多教授讲到的。另外一点呢，他会在这个过程中啊，去探讨身体的这个流动性。那么在这个里面就会有以摄影的这个方式，把他的身体和他所关注的这种整个运动流动物体所留下的遗迹，做了这样的一套摄影的作品。在下面我们看到的就是更直接的一个对应。那么这个是高富燕，他的这个作品呢，就像刚才萨杜教授讲到阿尔梅达的整个创作生涯中，在关注皮肤的这一点，我特别感同身受。那这也是整个作品中更加直接的正面面对这个阿尔梅达的一种对话方式。这个高富燕他的创作啊。艺术家高富燕，他的这个创作首次的因为他作为一个摄影师，拍作品也将近拍了有30多年，在他的作品中从来没有出现过自己的身体皮肤，也是在整个这次的创作的过程中，他开始把早期使用的关于田字格、关于中国文字的这样的一种创作方式。和自己的身体做了结合。当我们去仔细去看，比如说像他进步的这张作品的时候，他其实是用田字格来定位他的那些在人生成长过程中的那些痕迹。那么这样的一个成长痕迹，在一定程度上，如果我们熟悉中文的话，其实有观众可能已经看到，哎，上面脖子上方的那个，有一点像我们中国的米字。就是在写的那个格，那么在他的这套作品中也有很多这类的细节出现。再就是这样的一件作品，就是闵汉的2张绘画的作品。我刚刚也是在听萨杜教授的这个讲解的这个过程中啊， 也是了解到，其实，对于艺术创作者来说，对于我们每一个艺术创作者来说，用手去绘画，这是一个最直接的反馈。这也是在整件这次邀请的艺术家中比较少的直接用绘画的作品来体现的。那么在这个里面，它其实更多的是一种隐喻式的对话。它更多的是体现的一个女性艺术家，或者说一个女性对于空间尺度的把握。简单来说就是，如果我们从阿尔梅达的她对于作品个人身体与空间的一个感悟，能从她的作品中看到。那么从这样的绘画中，我们看到的是，比如说像这张大爆炸，以及下一张作品，这个只放了一张哈。OK， 那么他的另一件作品，我们可以看到的，它叫做《深渊》这个大章鱼的这件作品，我们可以看到，一个人对于整个空间，一方面是向上，升腾的，向上去求索的一种状态，一方面是向深海中求索，而在这个里头，它加入了很多中国传统的元素，也就制造了这样的一种空间混合的隐喻效果。这是我的这个部分的一个简单的介绍。
Thank you so much, Professor Song. I would like to address a question also to Terence. Terence is one of the curators of the Macao Museum of Art, who engages with studies of Taoism. From that standpoint, he has a peculiar and particular view on the work of Helena Almeida and an interpretation that may shed some light in relation to how did the Chinese and Macau artists interpret the work of Helena Almeida. Would you like to share it with us, Terence?
Of course, thank you. 我还是讲普通话，因为我是读哲学的，我的哲学专业，以一个读哲学的人来看Helena Almeida的作品，的一些心得，可能对大家也会有一定的启示。我是特别喜欢研究现象学，然后现象学是比如说那个胡萨尔他认为我们去研究哲学，就是观察这个世界，是应该回到事实本身。Go back to the things themselves， 这是一个很出名的一个主张，就是我们要回到事实本身。然后呢，另外一个法国的哲学家叫梅洛庞蒂 （Merleau-Ponty），他又进一步的解释，就是说，其实你要回到事实本身之前，你应该先回到身体本身 ，Go back to the body first。为什么呢？因为我们去了解这个世界，其实我们都需要我们的肉体、我们的身体。我们是透过我们的身体去感受这个世界。我们想回到事实本身、事物本身之前，我们先要观察自己的身体，了解自己的身体是怎么去观察这个世界的。所以，如果你带着这种观念去看 Helena Almeida 的作品的时候，你会发现他整个探索就是进行一种哲学探讨。你看他初期就受那个丰塔拉的那个影响，就是对从一个平面的画布扩展到立体的探索，就突破绘画的平面性。然后他后来又开始用身体来介入，这个就。我看了一些文章，就实际上他是受到Merleau-Ponty 的影响的，他就是也是用身体来 做绘画，他本身也是有一个很强的那个哲学理念在里面，所以他一直都认为他的身体就是他的画笔，所以这也是贯穿了他的一生的那个创作。这是从平面到三维，这是实际上在哲学来说是属于空间的探索。空间的探索也就是现象学里面最重要的一个，特别是对于 Merleau-Ponty 的身体现象学来说是最重要的起点。所以Helena Almeida 他是用他的身体做一系列的探索，然后到了后来他又透过许多一系列性的作品，刚才沙杜教授所讲的很多一系列的作品，这个从哲学来看呢，其实他这个所谓的系列，他整个作品就是一个时间性的延伸。他透过空间的探索之后，他又从空间探索延伸到时间探索，就形成了一系列的作品。到时候大家如果去看现场看到的一些作品，非常震撼，是因为他在空间上、在时间上做一个连接，就是他跟看电影又不一样，它是一幅作品，其实放在那里就是扩展了整个空间。比如说我们看视频，都是在同一个空间里面看那些画面在变，是不是？但是他把那些时间性的东西就是变成一个立体的东西，然后就并列在一起，然后就扩大它的那个比例，所以看起来就非常震撼。我特别喜欢其中一件作品叫《无题》，就是他手上画着一个红色的那个。我当时看到我在现场第一次看到的时候，在展场他们还在布展，我看到的时候我几乎是感动到有点哭了那种感觉，因为我站在那里好像是进入一个教堂，一个神圣的地方，然后一个艺术家透过空间时间来探索一个非常严肃的问题，然后这个效果是非常震撼的。大家有机会可以特别去欣赏一下那件作品，然后所以他的一生，如果我们从上帝的视角来看的话，他的一生就是一个完整的、很认真的一个哲学探讨。他透过他的艺术作品进行了一个很深刻的艺术探讨，然后就让大众都可以一起来很实在的去探讨一些很深刻的那个哲学问题。我觉得这是非常可贵的。当然透过沙杜和我们同事的这样子一个展览的呈现，也有机会让大家一起在那么美好的艺术馆的空间去进行有诗意也有哲学深度的探讨。希望大家到时候去看展览的时候就多去回想一下这种哲学的探讨，哲学的问题，我觉得会有更多的收获。然后就关于如果站在道家的中国文化的角度来看 Helena Almeida 的话，我觉得有2点是可以比较可以大家可以注意的，就是说透过身体来探讨哲学问题，思考人生。其实这个跟老子其中的一个以身观身的观点是有呼应的。因为在中国的哲学里面，中国哲学有一个很重要的观念，就是说我们的身体其实也就是这个宇宙，这个宇宙跟我们的身体其实它是对应的，这叫天人合一。然后当艺术家去 focus 在注意他自己的身体，他就有一种很强的观念，就是比如说他探讨高跟鞋，他就一直在穿那双高跟鞋，然后在探讨高跟鞋的时候，实际上他探讨的并不是他的身体，是整个社会对女性身体的一种期待和或者是人对自己的一种折磨 一种坚持，这种挣扎，其实都是在透过他身体的这个反观里面去进行的。所以大家去看那些作品的时候，看到他用他的身体来探讨，实际上他也是在探讨这个人生、这个社会和这个宇宙里面的一些很严肃的问题。这方面我觉得在中国的哲学里面也有很深的那个 echo。实际上他们是像可以做一些探讨的。然后在表现方式来说呢，Helena Almeida 的视觉语言是非常强烈的，她喜欢用黑色，她像那种用那些黑色墨粉啊，然后在我自己看的过程中，很强烈的感觉就是它跟中国的水墨就很像，它有那种庄严感，黑色的那种丰富感。虽然是黑色，但是它里面是蕴藏着非常强烈的视觉语言，然后那些构图是非常严谨和耐人寻味的。我认为这方面在中国艺术家做出回应的时候，他比如说那个闵汉老师，还有那个另外一个视频，他其实也是采用了黑色，然后他喜欢用蓝色，蓝色代表理性，然后红色代表那个热情。他对颜色的使用非常克制，正是因为这种克制，造成了一个张力。我觉得跟中国水墨画、中国那个传统是有一些异曲同工之用。这方面我觉得非常有趣。然后我觉得很多中国人看他的作品也会，特别是现场看的作品，也会有更深层次、很丰富的美学体验。这是我跟大家的分享的一些心得吧。好，谢谢。